Welcome to our webinar today. Today we are talking about a culture of care and how that keeps children safe in our schools. Today's session is part of a short series on safeguarding and child protection in education settings. It's not intended to address all safeguarding and child protection issues, but to give you a short synopsis of the agenda and to signpost you to key aspects for your consideration. My name is Suzanne Murray and I'm a specialist safeguarding and child protection practitioner with experience in both the international and in UK state schools. I'm currently the safeguarding lead in Asia for a leading education provider supporting 14 organisations across 5 countries. However, I am firstly an educator with 30 years experience across both private and public schools. I firmly believe in embedding safeguarding in a school's culture of care, turning policy into practice in a measured and balanced way. I am passionate about what I do and have had the privilege to have had many opportunities to share the work that I do with others. This is very important as it's essential that we address safeguarding and child protection in all education settings and that we move towards a culture in our schools and in our learning environments where children are placed at the centre of our decision making. It's important to consider the current context for safeguarding and child protection and to fully understand the journey taken to get to today's agreed standards for schools. Our key question is, how does it keep children safe? The safeguarding agenda in schools is a relatively new concept in the international world. Originally, the key focus was on child protection, which we know to be the identification of children who have been hurt or harmed, or who are at risk of hurt and harmed by an adults or other children. However, in 2014, the international world was shaken by the William Vahey abuse case, where many children across a range of international schools are believed to have been victims of abuse. This and many other cases highlighted the need for action. The international world began to look at the policies and procedures that were in place already. This work was led by the Council of International Schools and then subsequently the newly established International Task Force Group, who looked to establish new standards and to raise awareness about abuse within the international school communities. There was an increased focus on the breadth and connection of policies and procedures in a range of areas which were needed to keep children safe. Both bodies continued to lead the way, and the schools accreditation body now all recognise the importance of safeguarding in schools. But what does this mean? Schools now work towards agreed standards, embedding understanding of safeguarding and working to ensure that children in our schools are protected from abuse. They work to prevent harm to children's health, well-being and development. They work to promote a safe and effective culture of care which is understood by all of the community, and to prioritise children to ensure that actions are taken to enable children and young people to achieve their best outcomes. So what is a culture of care and what does it mean? Does this mean that schools didn't keep children safe before the introduction of safeguarding into the school settings? No, this was not necessarily the case. Many schools had good well-being and pastoral care systems in place and had teachers and administrators working in schools who had the best interests of children at heart. However, it was widely recognised that in the early days of safeguarding implementation, it was usual to take a more compliance approach to the requirements or standards. For instance, to ensure that everybody had the appropriate training, or to have an annual signed declaration to support the implementation of policy. As awareness of effective safeguarding grew and continues to grow, schools now tend to take a more holistic approach to the creation of a culture of care which supports students, staff, and the wider school community on a day-to-day basis. By considering all aspects of well-being, including mental health, but also pastoral care, the support and interventions, and child protection, and embedding a school-wide understanding of standards, expectations, and behaviours required to safeguard, schools are able to ensure that then their ethos, their culture, and their vision all demonstrate their commitment to keeping children safe. It places a high emphasis on creating the right climate in schools, which supports both staff and students. It's not something seen in isolation, a policy or a set of rules. A culture of care is a mindset. It's a conscious approach to embed daily practice which prioritizes children and children's safety. There are many areas of school life which contribute to a supportive culture and to keeping children safe, and we will visit some of these areas in future webinars. Having a holistic view of each child enables trained staff to spot signs of concerns, changes in behaviour, to ask the right questions, and to support those children who are at risk of abuse or in need of specialist support and protection. One of my favourite quotes states that it is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken adults. However, we now know that increasingly we have children who are in need of support and protection, who suffer from mental health issues, and who need to have adults who actively engage in their lives, both at home and in school. So in schools, by placing children at the centre of the decision making, we ensure that the children are prioritised, that they are listened to, that they are given room to grow and to develop self-esteem and self-belief. Schools who work to build positive relationships with children, who provide an environment in where children can seek support from a range of trusted adults, now are in a better place to support the challenges that our children face. We also recognise that children who face challenges specifically from abuse or from other adverse childhood experiences may struggle to reach their potential in later life. And so schools and school staff in particular are in a unique position to influence, to address and perhaps to change some of those challenges that are faced by our children. By ensuring that schools embed a culture of care in daily practice, we now know that schools do make a difference. So when we look to try and unpick some of the features of a culture of care, we can ask ourselves, what would we expect to see, to hear, and to feel in a school that has an embedded culture of care, supporting child protection and safeguarding? We would look to see a community approach, a common understanding across all of our community, but also really clear ownership, responsibility, and accountability in all areas of our school. We would look to see a commitment to keeping children safe in an honest and open way, to ensure that there is appropriate professional development so that all members of the community understand the key messages and the commitment needed and as part of a culture of care. We look to see agreed standards and expectations applied across a school, and to have clarity in reporting processes, but not only have clarity in reporting processes, but see evidence of action, to see that people are taking action, reporting concerns, acting on gut feelings, which allows people to identify the vulnerable and at-risk children. Once those children are given a voice and feel that they can come to and speak with a trusted adult, or have been identified through some of the processes spoken about, we then need to provide support and intervention to help those children who do need that extra adult intervention. We also need to ensure that children understand what we mean by safeguarding and child protection, and what we know is that children need to understand how to keep themselves safe, how to recognize risk, and how to keep to take risks appropriately. That doesn't mean to say that the responsibility of keeping themselves safe lie with children. We have that responsibility, but children need to be able to recognize risk and seek help appropriately. We need a culture of vigilance, and we also, most importantly, is we need to believe it could happen here. Safeguarding and child protection and the abuse of children is widespread and happens everywhere, and therefore by believing it could happen, by being vigilant and by embedding the features of a culture of care, we go a long way towards keeping children safe. A key area which contributes to keeping children safe is safer recruitment. Simplified, it's the responsibility of the head of school to be sure that the adults who work with the children are appropriate and fit to do so. So what does this mean in practice? It's the duty of the school to ensure that they have followed the safer recruitment guidance and implemented robust background screening checks on all adults who work with students, not just employees, but also for our contractors, our extracurricular providers, and for school volunteers. The safer recruitment are the steps taken to evidence that the adults employed to work with children are suitable adults. It begins with the clear message sent out by the school that they are a supporter and are aligned with the safeguarding standards to keep children safe. It is an attitude to employment where we seek to ensure that the adults that we interview and subsequently appoint have the behaviours, attitudes and values which align with the culture of the school. It's around recruiters and heads of school being confident that the appointments will fit and support your school culture and will ensure that they adhere to the policies and procedures for keeping children safe in your schools. Many HR departments will lead on safe recruitment, and they will undertake or arrange to have background screening checks taken for all candidates who we are offering contracts to. The approach to background screening is still very varied. Local police checks can be requested as part of the process. Some HR departments will undertake Google searches, for instance, to consider a candidate's social media presence. Whilst this might give you some very useful data, and some of this some useful public data, the use of a reputable company is recommended, as they often have the software, the skill and the expertise to undertake these background screening checks in a much more robust and forensic manner. Avvanz, as one of these such companies, has developed both experience and understanding of the needs of the international schools. They understand background screening now from a child protection position, and they work with a range of clients across the globe. Only other screening services are available, and the provision varies from country to country. So I do recommend that you find the best solution for your school. We cannot talk about safeguarding and child protection without giving some consideration to the current global crisis that we face. This is a new challenge for many of our children, but we have seen both organisations and also law enforcement have seen an increase in sexual crimes in particular against children online during the COVID-19 outbreak. This is a major concern. But it's by no means the only concern or the only challenge as a result of our constraints and restrictions during lockdown periods and during the virus within our countries. For many children, school is their safe place. We teach them to talk to trusted adults. And now the children find that their access to these adults is significantly reduced. Their access to their friends is also significantly reduced. Lessons have moved online. However, these are often provided to groups and are often supervised by adults at home. Given the statistics on abuse, where up to 90% of abuse takes place within the home or within the family or extended family context, this increases the risk for many children in our schools, and it may leave some of our children extremely vulnerable to continuous and ongoing abuse. So how do we meet the needs for these children today? And what are we doing to extend our culture of care to our culture of care online? So I would recommend that you are extremely proactive, that you identify your vulnerable children or your at-risk children, and then you arrange for your counsellors or safeguarding staff to check in with them on a one-to-one basis. Remind your teachers to use emotional check-ins at the start of lessons. Make it easy for children to contact staff or to speak with them, and remind them every day that you are there to listen. Schools can provide worksheets which use trust exercises, which allows children to share their emotions and concerns so that then this can be sent to their teachers. For teachers and for safeguarding staff, it's really important to trust your gut feeling, to seek advice, to report concerns, and to give your children the opportunity, every opportunity, to speak to you when you are concerned about their safety at home. Just a small caveat, which is to be sure that your school has clear standards and expectations in place, not only for online learning, but in particular for one-to-one sessions, because there's an importance to safeguard your staff also. It's also important as we move from our lockdown situations to welcome our children back to school that we also consider the changing needs of our children as school begins again. We know that children seek support and love and care from our school environments, and we do know that for some children who are loved at home, it's wonderful, but for some students who come to school, their focuses may not be the learning, but they may come to school for the support of the adults. Allowing a school to be led by a culture of care takes real and sustained commitment. It begins with a leadership vision, which is shared with, embraced, and then actioned by the school community. The implementation of internationally recognized safeguarding and child protection standards, aligned with effective pastoral care, which is led by experienced and trained staff, and a promoted well-being and positive mental health strategy will provide a climate where children are free to flourish. This culture will encourage children to reach their potential in an environment where they feel heard, valued, and empowered. This short webinar is an introduction to a culture of care approach to keeping children safe. It's a proactive approach to embed safeguarding and child protection practices in a safer way in school. It allows for the embedding of policy into practice so that protecting children becomes meaningful and understood by the whole community. It enhances the learning environment, allowing children to take risks, to learn to fail in order to become resilient, and to acquire the skills to handle whatever life throws at them in the future. Our next webinars will begin to build on this introduction to explore the many ways of keeping children safe in our schools across a range of different areas. I look forward to sharing them with you. Thank you for your time, and let's work together to ensure that keeping children safe remains a priority.